Hello everybody, my name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today we are back at it. We are talking about Patriot Front. Is this a Fed sting operation? Are these LARPers? Are they the real deal? That's the question we're going to be diving into. But there's also a more important question that we'll be diving into as well. And, does it make a difference? And that's actually the more important question, because I don't think Patriot Front is a group I could get behind, and I'm going to talk about that. And that's besides the question of whether they're Feds, LARPers, or the real deal or not. This is just a group that doesn't really identify the correct problem, and I don't think they really have the correct solutions either. So that's what we're going to talk about. First, I do want to point out that, I hope you enjoyed that Cringe Fest video I compiled for yesterday's video and on the woke evangelicals and their foot fetishes. I hope you enjoyed that cringe. It was rough editing it, but, I was the director of that cringe, and I hope I told the story in the cringiest way possible, just for the effect of knowing how cringy these people are. And, these woke evangelicals, they are the real racists. So we're going to get back to some serious stuff. We've had some levity the last few videos with Christian film reviews, and we'll have more Christian film reviews coming up because we'll be doing The Chosen this month. Going to do a video review series of that. So do not miss that. You're going to want to subscribe and spread the word maybe. And also check out evangelicaldarkweb.org. Great articles on there. I'm not the only one writing them anymore. So other people are writing good articles now. So with that said, let's dive into the Patriot Front. A lot of this comes from Gab. I posted a poll on Gab. Is Patriot Front a Fed sting? And yes, I only got 29 votes, which is actually pretty good for a poll that I've posted on social media. I don't get that much on Twitter. Not usually. So 34% said definitely a Fed sting. That amounts to 10 votes. 9 votes at 28% said no, real deal, and then unsure, which took the plurality, was at 38%. That was 11 votes. So again, very evenly split. But on this question, there's a lot of mystery about whether Patriot Front is the real deal or not, whether they're whether they're a Fed sting operation. So let's dive into their social media and let's kind of dive into that question. But there is a more important question overarching this issue. If they were the real deal, would we even believe it? Or are we so black-pilled that any activist organization is assumed to be a Fed? That is the more important question, I feel like. Because if we're so black-pilled on the idea of activism, that we don't actually believe any organizations can be legitimate, then we therefore don't have any more grassroots organizations in activism, then they win either way. So that is the more important question. Are we so black-pilled that we can't tell what the real deal is? Because obviously there's been a lot of Fed stings in the past, and they will continue in the future. So this is just the latest possible iteration, because clearly my audience, or the audience of this poll, because I used it on a hashtag, so obviously this audience is interested in Patriot Front. These 29 voters were, but again, no clear consensus on what to make of the situation. So let's actually just dive through their social media. Let's go on a social media dumpster dive, because that's really what their social media account is. And it's a dumpster. So this is their video. It's just a drum beat at a protest. So let's actually go to their Gab page. And if you're not on Gab, you should get on Gab. I actually think Gab definitely poses the best as far as the alternatives go. And I think I'll do a separate video on that because, let's see, today is Monday. On Tuesday, we'll be dropping a really good column on the situations and the landscape of social media and how that could change, what and why it could change. We're going to be talking about that in a different video, I feel. And again, Gab is kind of, to me, the leader of the pack in this regard. So this is a Patriot Front, the social media, and all their social media pictures seem to have this filtered image of black and white, but we're going to emphasize certain colors. So they had a rally with smoke, shields. I don't know if those are actual riot shields or not. It looks like they're wearing hockey pads on their legs, mask up top. So one of the key observations is that this group wants to conceal their identities. They also emphasize the peaceful. It was a relatively peaceful event. Conservative media largely dismissed this as a Fed sting. They weren't giving this the time of day of any legitimacy. So, again, more pictures from their march. Shields, hockey pads, better shields in my opinion than that. And, of course, they're all wearing face coverings and sunglasses. And then hats. So this is a more organized attempt than what we've seen in the past in terms of, I'm not saying that they're paramilitary because I don't think they're that real enough to be a paramilitary, but that's just my observation. But they are trying to dress like a paramilitary, sort of like a response to what we're seeing in Antifa. So these are some of their pictures when they're not. So let's look at their earlier pictures. Obviously some hiking. Looks like they go out into the woods. Hanging banners up across bridges in Massachusetts, in California, and again in Massachusetts. They're doing some training, and that's what it kind of shows. Some stencils, spray painting. And again, I'm not against spray painting on top of Black Lives Matter paintings, because I think that's what some of these videos depict, or some of these pictures depict. This is in Washington, back in Michigan again. Looks like they're boxing. They're doing some boxing training, and I guess I'll save my comments on that later. Oregon, Arkansas, Texas. Obviously, there's supposedly chapters all across the nation. Indiana, Colorado, Virginia. Again, more boxing pictures at a park. Oh, looks like we got some more close-quartered combat in there. But obviously, a lot of their images very, I don't want to say staged, but they're definitely putting out some propaganda for their advertisement. They want people to think that they're serious. They want people to think that they're more disciplined. And they want people to think that they're also really organized. And by all accounts, the organization and the discipline are very evident. But are they disciplined because they're feds? Or are they disciplined because these people are actually taking it seriously? Now, we can debate how seriously they're actually taking it. Because again, I don't think the shield walls and the knee pads are all that serious. I don't think that the face coverings are all that serious, when it kind of looks like to me that they're capitulating with COVID masking guidelines. Because to me, the face covering should be over the eyes going down, like you're, wearing a helmet for a supervillain or something like that. That to me is what the face covering should look like, not something that looks like it could be a COVID mask. That just doesn't send the message of we support freedom. That's just my take on that. And the boxing, maybe those weren't entirely boxing gloves, but idea being, shouldn't they be working more on something more like, okay, those are definitely boxing gloves. Shouldn't they be working more on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a little bit more of a practical hand-to-hand combat than just straight-up boxing? Especially since you're not going to have gloves out in the field. So again, some of this doesn't seem very legit to me. Seems pretty sketch. And if we want to talk about their uniforms with the khakis and the boots and all that, it's not what you expect out of a group. And again, a lot of people were commenting on there's not a beer gut among any of these people. They're all in relative shape, and fit males. And this was obviously commented on, and they had a pretty good response to this. In the people who support Patriot Front, they had a pretty good response to this claim, and I'll give them that. However, if we look on Gab, and the people that supported Patriot Front the most are, in my opinion, the Fed accounts. Because there are a ton, allegedly, a ton, definitely, of Fed accounts on Gab. That's definitely the worst part about Gab, are the Fed accounts. They're usually like the pro-Nazi or the people that hate Jews hardcore on there, often thought to be Feds. And for good reason. And those accounts seem to be the most bullish on Patriot Front. Now, again, I don't think Patriot Front looks all that serious to me. I think this is a very glorified and very well organized and expensive LARP. But it's not a LARP because they conceal their identities. It's not a LARP because they're heavily organized. It's a LARP because I don't think there's any real outcome here. I don't think they're actually serious. And let me actually read what Patriot Front actually believes. I'm going to read some excerpts from their manifesto. I can't show it on the screen. I have it pulled up on my phone. Can't show it on the screen because the website's not working on my desktop for some reason. But I had it preloaded. I was reading it earlier on my phone, and that's still working. So, people without a natural identity will find an artificial one. Instead of identifying with a natural classification, such as family, community, nation, or race, one will identify with a corporate brand, a materialistic political viewpoint, or a commercialized facet of culture. So that's one excerpt, and clearly there is a huge emphasis on your ethnicity in this group. I don't think it's a group that non-white people can really be welcomed and a part of. I don't think they'll tolerate the rooftop Korean, which is a natural ally to the white conservative. Just saying. So I'm going to read the tail end of it. This is towards the end of their manifesto, which is really long, really emphasizes European identity, and that will be evident in the section I'm about to read. Our people must learn to internalize their natural identities and come to connect that re-emerging identity with their homeland. Americans are descendants of Europeans, but at the same time, they are not Europeans. This nation is unique in its newly realized pan-European identity, which has allowed it to succeed. A nation without its people realizing a common identity is no nation at all. I agree with that last part. If there's no identity as a nation, there really isn't a nation at all. I agree with that last part. But everything before that I just read is really wrong. America is built off common law British tradition. It's not a pan-European. America does not have a pan-European heritage. That's just simply not true. It is primarily a heritage of British common law, British culture, English culture is what makes up and is the basis for American culture. You don't get to America without understanding events like the English Civil War. You don't get to America without understanding events where the whole idea of the battle with the state's church and a lot of these other things that are very unique to British history that influenced the America and American Revolution. The English Bill of Rights, the battles with Parliament. Our system of government did take inspiration from the British as well. So this, it's not, we're not a pan-European culture, or in terms of our national identity. America is not built off pan-European cultures, governance, or not all history, because again, Europe has a very broad history. But if you read the documents like the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, they do reference a lot of history in there. But the point that I'm trying to make is the settlers were British. They're English A lot of them were English colonists, and that is reflected in their culture. That's why we speak English in the United States. We don't have a hodgepodge of English, German, Swiss. Swiss isn't a language, but Switzerland is a country that has 3 recognized languages. We don't have that in the United States. And France, we don't speak French here either. And I think the only reason we have French labels on products is because those companies want to sell products in French Canada. Quebec, big deal up there, I guess. So basically, that's the main gist of this organization. I don't think they have a correct diagnosis of the problem. The problem isn't that white people aren't recognizing a white identity. That's not the problem. The problem is, again, it goes back to the sin of Adam. It goes back to sin. Sin is the problem. Sin is a problem. I do not believe that Patriot Front addresses this issue because I believe they are largely secular. Because as you said, natural identity did not include faith. It did not include faith. So it's very clear that this is a secular attempt at saving America at best. At best, that's what it is. At worst, it is a federally created white supremacist organization. That's the at worst. Obviously, I think it's somewhere a little bit in between. Again, I don't think they're the real deal. Again, on the optimistic side, they're glorified LARPers. On the pessimistic side, they're just feds. This isn't the real deal. They're not serious. So, I can't see a Christian really supporting this organization because I don't think they have a biblical worldview whatsoever. It's not in their documents. To me, I think a lot of these organizations are simply just going to steal parts of what the Bible says to point out problems and solutions. But they're going to ignore, the Jesus factor. Because that hurts them. They don't want to confront their own sin. They don't want to confront mankind's fallen nature. They would much rather blame it on a lack of national identity. They think if we are naturally good, if we just accept our natural identity, everything will be all good again. That's not how human nature works. So again, I'm not a fan of Patriot Front. I don't think that they're the real deal. It's not necessarily proven that they're feds either. They could just be glorified LARPers that are sinking a lot of money into their devotion to their live action role play. That could be it. But I don't think conservative media is wrong to decry them and denounce them as a Fed operation. And back to the question that I think is more important. Would we recognize real activism if it showed up the next day? Or are we just so trained and accustomed to believing that these are all feds? That they're just going to entrap us in a crime, in a conspiracy? That's, to me, is the more dangerous and pressing question. So, again, Patriot Front, not the answer. But what could be the answer? I don't think it's the 3%ers or the Oath Keepers. I believe the feds really hardcore infiltrated both of those. But there are other groups out there. But again, a lot of them are LARPers as well. They're not serious. So that's really all I got to say about that. My name is Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to the channel as well. Also, check out evangelicaldarkweb.org. That'll be linked in the description below. Have a blessed day, and don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you think about what I think about the Patriot Front. Add more votes to my artificial poll that's already closed on Gab, but certainly voice your opinion in the comments section. I'd love to hear it. So, again, have a blessed day. I will catch you on the next one.